I'm going to let Eric in.
Let's say I was working with the one of our moderators a couple of weeks ago, and we decided we need a little flashcard or one of those little paddles, little paddle things that says Zoom has you on mute. And you just, it's
You
like we
are
say
on
that
mute.
all the time. People are talking. Zoom has you on mute. We're
That's great.
going to go build a visual cue for that. So I haven't done it yet. I need to do that.
Eric, welcome to the Zoom. I'm going to give everybody a couple seconds to get their audio set up before we start here. Good to see you again. We are live on the YouTubes now. Hello to the folks waiting out there. All righty. I think we're all connected. Let's do it. Welcome, one and all, to another of the Pragmatic Institute Ask Me Anything series. So good to have you with us. Welcome back if you're joining us again. Good to see repeat faces. We love that. This is, of course, an Ask Me Anything style format. So as we go along, feel free to turn your cameras on, to unmute yourself, to ask clarifying questions, to ask even silly questions. We'll take them all these days. And then I'm going to give a shout out at the top here. Callie has put the slide up on the screen. There you go. For the Pragmatic Alumni Community, go join it. If you haven't done it yet, go join it. That is, of course, the resource for the product management community. You will find tools there. You will find friends there. You will find career opportunities there. That's the spot you need to be to talk and discuss and to be seen. And of course, we are proud to offer it now to anyone who has takes or is taking the Pragmatic Institute online or live in-person classes. Do it. You don't want to miss out on that resource. And with that out of the way, of course, let's introduce to you today's Pragmatic Institute instructor extraordinaire, Steve Gaylor. Steve, you are extraordinaire today. Welcome. Good to see you.
Yeah, as long as we don't have to discuss what I'm extraordinary at, that was fine. I'm good
I
with
left
that.
it vague. You can be extraordinaire at what you want to be today. It's just
There we go.
loosey in here.
All right.
Good to
So
have you. We've got a bunch of questions that were pre-submitted, but of course, for you folks joining us live, go ahead. You can stick them in the chat if you like. You can send them just to me, or you can send them to the group, whatever you're more comfortable with. But for anyone who submits a question live today, we of course are doing my favorite new promotion. We will give you a gift card for a free lunch to the question chosen by Steve at the end of our session today as his favorite question. Stick around at the end. He'll pick it. We'll send you a gift card for a free lunch. It's so much fun. There is a such thing as a free lunch. Who knew? How about that? So get those questions ready. And as you're thinking, in the meantime, Steve, I'm going to start off with one of our pre-submitted ones here from Tatiana. Tatiana asks, I am in charge of hiring our new PM team, but have been told they will all be remote going forward. It's the new normal. As this will be my first time running a remote team, are there other characteristics and skill sets I should be looking for as opposed to the traditional in-house types I'm used to employing? Steve, what's the difference now for a talented online PM as opposed to an in-person PM?
yeah, that's a really good question about, especially around this new norm, right? Everything going on. I don't know, Tatiana, if you have actually worked remote before. I have worked remote and have led remote teams at different points in my career, different times. And I think the good news is, from my perspective, the traits that you want in the remote team are traits you're looking for in a regular product team member, product management, product marketing kind of person anyway. You want people who are really, really good at communicating. Um, So I think the skill sets, the resources you're looking for, the analytics, the ability to tell a story, right? All those kinds of things are the same. Truth to leadership, all those kinds of things are the same, regardless of whether they're remote or not. I actually think it's not about how they work, it's how you manage them. I think it's bigger, the much bigger difference is in the manager and the way that they interact with that remote team. You don't get the opportunity to stand up and go down the hall and say, how's things going? What's up? You don't get a chance to have the water cooler conversations. You don't have the chance to, ask, what was for dinner last night? What'd you watch on TV? How's it going with the family? Right? Those kind of inherent conversations that occur when we're all together don't happen in that remote environment unless we make them happen or carve out time to do that. So I'll say one of the biggest mistakes I made in the past in managing a remote team was I didn't do that regular touch-in. Right? Even if I had nothing on my agenda, nothing I wanted to talk about, I'd schedule 15 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever. Hey, just catching up, see what's going on, what's on your mind, how things going, how's the wife? You guys had a birthday anniversary the other day, right? So, things like that. Is your kid, what school is your kid decided to go to this fall? I think it's harder on the manager to manage a remote team than it is a remote employee to participate on a remote team. The skill sets, they're roughly the same, but we've got to be over aware of that interpersonal kind of communication that, okay, in person happens naturally, that won't happen now.
Yeah. Man, it's such a timely question. We're all struggling with the same issues surrounding that now. How do we reap the benefits of being in person when we can't be in person? And it seems like an impossible task sometimes.
Yeah.
We're going to have to find new venues. It was so effortless before to say to somebody in the hallway, "How's the family?" And now you got to schedule a Zoom appointment to say, "How's the family?" But
Well, and you take the opportunity at the beginning of meetings, and have some chit chat before at the start of the meeting. There are times and ways you can. I mean, how many of us, if we had a year ago said, you're going to spend all day on Zoom and you're going to be fine with that, right? I mean, how dramatically have things changed? So we just got to be over conscious of that lack of opportunity to have the casual conversations that occur naturally versus where we are today. But the
seriously,
skill
well,
sets are.
we're all in it together, folks. We'll figure it out together. Steve, we've got kind of a theme in some of our pre-submitted questions today. Lots of questions around career advancement, hiring, that kind of thing. I don't know if that's a good sign. Maybe we're looking at a bellwether here. The market is picking up. I'm going to be optimistic about it. Let's say that. But here's a question from Gail. Gail says, how long do you think is long enough to wait before you seek out a higher PM role? I feel like this company piles on the work 11 months in, but I know I'm still new to product management. It's not that I don't get it, it's just the workload as a whole is unsustainable. Any suggestions? Steve, the first thing I thought of when I read that was, can you spend just a second talking about what are some higher PM roles? Where might a position like that advance to? What might Gail have in mind?
Yeah, well, I actually think there's two questions in that area, the way that she's phrased it. To answer your question, higher PMs, you use all kinds of titles, right? Junior PM, new PM, associate PM, right? I mean, there's dozens and dozens and dozens of titles. Um, when I was leading teams, you are responsible for a portion of a product or a specific set of tasks around a limited set of products. That was kind of the entry, right? And then you stepped up to managing an entire product, right? All the components going on. You may still not have anybody reporting to you, but you've got more of that responsibility. Then it came to managing product portfolios. Then you got into more, strategic kinds of things and the various product marketing versus product management. How many of the 37 or which of the 37 activities in the framework were you responsible for? So those growth, you see, all kinds of titles: associate product manager, senior product manager, director of product management, and on and on and on, right? It moves on. But it was really about how much responsibility. Sometimes at some stage in that process, you would now have P&L responsibility, right? That you're really going to start being held accountable for the results of your product and the impact that product's going to have on the business. So those are kind of some ideas, of what that career path might look like. The two questions that I heard you, correct me if I didn't hear this right, there was really, if I was turning that into Steve speak, I would say, hey, I've got too much work to do. It's running me in the ground, and I think I need to go find a new place to work, right? That's part. That wasn't exactly how the question was phrased. So I think there are two questions there. One is, how can I manage the workload, right? The second is, when is the right time? How do I know I have enough experience to pursue a new opportunity or a higher level? I think is the way they.
That's how I read it too. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's take the first question first. The easiest way that I have found to try to get an awareness, oftentimes I think as managers, we say, here's this list of stuff that needs to be done. Who are the resources that I have available to do it? And you start to hand it out. And unfortunately, and I've been guilty of this, I'm sure others have been as well, sometimes I punish the successful people, right? You're really good, you're doing a great job, so I'm going to give you more to do, right? You're punished via your success. So you've got to be careful of that. If you're on the receiving end of that thing, really what it comes down to is making your manager or making that person aware. A lot of times I'm going to keep giving you stuff until you yell uncle or something happens, let's have that conversation. So one of the things you can do is take the framework. And in fact, if you mentioned the pack, if you go out to the community, you can go download the gap analysis tool. And one of the things I've done with that gap analysis tool is go through and say, because one of the questions in there is who owns what, right? What role owns what activity? You can go plug values in there, and there's a tab in that worksheet that's a pivot table that you can update, and it'll list by role, by title, by whatever you put in. Here are all the activities we're asking this person to perform. So I've actually gone into my manager before, filled out that gap analysis, and put my name on all the things I was being asked to do, and walk in and say, hey, I just want to show you this, make sure I've got it right. These are all the things you're asking me to do, right? And here are the things that, I don't think that I'm involved in. And when you put it in somebody's face and that kind of delivery, right? I'm not complaining. I'm just showing you, here's all the things I think you're asking me to do. Do I have it right? Then sometimes you go, oh, wow, that's a lot of stuff, right? Maybe we need to think about rearranging some of that. Or perhaps I need to give you some help to help with that kind of stuff. So that's kind of a technique that I've used in the past to kind of subtly, or maybe not so subtly, make people, my manager, aware of, look, here's all the stuff you're asking me to do, and something's got to go, right? I can't do it all. I can't get it all done. I can't do a good job of all of it. So that's kind of a way to make that visible, I guess. The second part of the question, how long do you wait? To me, that's a confidence thing. You're going to have almost infinitely more understanding and experience 6 months into the job. You're going to have something less than infinite more experience 12 months into the job, right? You're going to continue to grow. And it comes down to, when do you have the confidence that you feel good about moving to the next level? And I would say, if you want, and this is kind of may not be intuitive, but if you want the world to judge if you're ready or not, go interview for some of those more senior positions. Have that discussion, and when you have those interviews, you've got to be ready to receive some feedback to say, I don't think you're ready. I don't think you have the experience. But that's the best way to test. It's hard. You've got to put yourself out there. But go interview for some of those senior positions. I mean, if you're doing that much work and you have a deep breadth of things you're being asked to do, then you're probably gaining experience very, very quickly. Right? So I don't know that it's a time frame thing. Just how comfortable do you feel with all the things that you're being asked to do? What are the things you're being asked to do in this more senior role? And say, yeah, I've got a handle on that. I feel good about that. or not, right? I mean, I think it's a self-confidence kind of thing.
Steve, I'm noticing over in the chat we have a comment from Lanka who says that she just went through that gap analysis process. Lanka, I don't mean to put you on the spot. Would you like to unmute and give us a little feedback about how that went?
Yes, he was very open to it. He has a BA, but he was saying that how we need to have this technical product managers and the marketing, looking outside product managers. How I showed him that how red it is on the left side of the tool. I showed him how badly we are doing right now. And,
how was that received?
very good. Actually, he said, "Yeah, this is really nice." I said, "I can." I just had half 1 hour meeting, and so I was going through some of the things, improvements that we can make, and stuff in the engineering and product management side. So I put the gap analysis at the very end of it, and I showed it to him, and I said, "I have the whole spreadsheet, but I just didn't want to move back and forth, so I just gave the results."
Mm-hmm.
Just to show it. Yeah, it is well received. I also said last meeting you told us that every four months we should do it and to see how it is, and it was my attempt at it. I may be doing it wrong, but I acknowledge that everybody's busy, and so I said I took a stab at it. This is where we are.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
That's great. You know, what a way to get introduced to the new CEO, right? Here's where the problems are. Here's why you were asked to come on board, right? Something like that. I don't know. I think that's great, Locke. I'm glad you found it very, very helpful for you, and we're able to walk through that. Callie's dropped a PDF version of that gap analysis there into the chat for us, but very, very valuable tool. It fosters so much discussion. You know, Locke, you talked about that being your shot at it, your stab at where you felt the gaps were, but it wouldn't surprise me that CEO doesn't turn around and schedule a meeting, you know, in the probably not too distant future to get a broader audience to get their input and have that debate and that discussion. And man, that's hugely valuable to get the company on the same page. So well done.
So cool, Lanka. Good job. Good job. Yeah, and Callie dropped looks like the PDF version. There is also an Excel version of the gap analysis tool as well. The Excel version, I think, is the one Steve was mentioning. It has a different tab and it's got some automated features. Oh, look at that.
Yeah,
Callie is just on the ball. On the ball. There's the Excel version as well. So whichever one you like, whichever format you like better, invaluable tool, I think.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
The interactive version, the Excel version is the one that's going to give you, of course, that pivot table that I talked about, that where you can see who's responsible for what, who we're asking to do what. So that's that.
No, Eric, that was completely spontaneous. That was not rehearsed at all. It's just that Callie is so on the ball.
She knows the community. She knows what's in the pack and where it is.
She knows what you're going to ask before you ask it. I don't want Gauri's question to get buried as we're getting some good participation in the chat here, but Gauri did ask a question in the chat. I'm going to go ahead and read it out loud, and then Gauri, if you want to unmute and ask some clarifying questions, feel free to do that as well. But here we go. Sorry, it says, what's your take on building custom solutions for the short term? Building the right scalable solution could take 6 to 12 months. If time to market is not key, is it a no-no to invest in a solution that will be deprecated when the right architecture comes along? I'm concerned users might not have the patience to wait 6 months and abandon all the other capabilities that we offer. Gauri, if I missed anything in that question, feel free to unmute and let Steve ask you any clarifying questions for that one as well.
I think I understand. Basically, it's the short term get something out versus the longer term get it right.
Yes,
that we're constantly facing. Do I have that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So the two things that I think probably in my thinking that guide my answer to this question, or maybe one thing and an example. we have a rule in our build class, and I actually just taught it the last couple of days, so this content's fresh in my mind. There's a rule in the build class that says it's better to deliver 100% of something rather than 70% of everything. We spend far too much time delivering partial solutions to a big, broad depth of kinds of things without ever actually finishing those, right? We talk about, I'm not worried about a potentially shippable product. I'm worried about a potentially sellable product. I'm not worried about a minimally viable product as a product team person, a product member. I am worried about a minimally valuable product, right? When am I going to have something that's valued by the market? And I think your concern about users not being patient is certainly a valid concern. I also think a big concern is, how is that user going to feel when they get something that's 70% of what they need, or they kind of, they really don't, it doesn't do everything they need. It doesn't do what they want it to do. Are they going to gain impatient, become impatient? Have you left them a bad first impression kind of thing? It's that old, you only get one chance to make a first impression kind of thing. And the example I want to give you, when I was teaching the build class this week, it was a private class, so everybody in attendance was from the same company. And we were kind of talking through this exact kind of question, this exact kind of debate. And one of the attendees brought up what I thought was an extremely interesting example that really illustrated that 100% of something kind of point. They said they were out looking for a solution for a tool they were going to use to manage some things, some activities within the product team. And they were comparing products, and one of them had far more functionality than the other, but the one that had less functionality had complete functionality. And they chose the one that had complete functionality, had less functionality, but it was very, well thought out, very complete, because they felt that because that company had executed so well, and the things that they had delivered so far were done so well, that as they added new functionality, that would also be done well. The other one had a broader set of features and functions, but they really didn't work just right, and it was difficult to use, and those kinds of things. And I thought that illustrated exactly what we were trying to, what the point we were trying to make there. I think your users will be far more accepting and far more patient if you nail the solutions that you do deliver to them. So my advice would be, pick a short-term subset of things that you can go do if you need to deliver something in the near term, and do those things really, really well. And you'll make a good impression, and you'll keep the patience of the users, and they will be understanding that this other stuff's going to follow, right? But they are going to have that expectation that when you deliver the follow-on, it's going to be really good too. So that was an example. My student this week said, hey, I had these two comparisons. This one had this much stuff. This one had this much stuff. But the one with the list stuff they did it right. And I felt that I chose them because I felt they were going to catch up. They were going to add new stuff. And when they did, it was going to be complete. It was going to really do what I needed it to do. So does that help, Gary? Does that answer your question?
It does. It was helpful. Thanks, Steve. It gives me a few pointers to go talk to engineering, because I think what happens is when you talk to engineering, sometimes a short-term solution, which will be deprecated by the right longer-term architectural solution, the short-term is seen as throwaway work. In my mind, if we're gaining user confidence, it changes how you view throwaway code. So yeah, it gives me your 170, the 100% versus, partial solution. It gives me a data point to try and change that perspective.
Well, yeah, and I think you've got to look at it from the developer's perspective, right? They're thinking, okay, I'm going to do this work, and it's going to be thrown away, and so it's not really, why am I being asked to do this? Well, you're being asked to do this so we can secure near-term revenue, so we can bring in our customer base, so we can build confidence with our customers and our users, right? I think we have to explain to the engineering team, and that's on us, to explain to them, here is the value that we as a company are going to receive for your throwaway work. It's not really throwaway. yes, it's going to be replaced, but there are goals and objectives that we have that we're going to be able to meet as a result of this near-term replacement kind of stuff. It's not truly throwaway. It's not wasted, put it that way. And here are the things that we hope to get from that, and have that conversation with them.
Gary, thanks so much for that question.
That's a good one.
Steve, I've got one here from Roberto. Roberto says, we are a startup and finding it hard to divide the PM and the PMM roles amongst the team of 5 product professionals. We've all had experience on both sides. Any ideas for ways to make sure we delegate roles correctly and hopefully evenly without playing favorites or getting steamrolled by stronger personalities? There are no strong personalities in the product world, are there, Steve?
No, not at all. And there's especially no strong personalities in the Pragmatic instructor team either, Eddie.
Oh, oops, we left our sarcasm switch on. Let me turn that off. There we go. Okay.
Yeah, there's no personalities in the instructor team. Callie, you got your gap analysis finger ready to go, because that's another gap analysis question, right?
It's in the chat. It's still in the chat.
Yeah, so we've got that that product management versus product marketing manager role. How do we go divide those up? That gap analysis, sit down. It sounds like, what'd you say, Eddie? 5 of them that are sharing those
5. Yeah, they got 5 product professionals. Yep.
Yeah, have the 5 product professionals sit down, have that discussion, and say, okay, who does what? How are we going to divide this stuff up? And just go through that gap analysis in that way to divide those responsibilities. I will tell you something I've always found interesting about dividing those responsibilities like that. Oftentimes there seems to be an impression among the industry or among people in these roles or whatever, that upper left-hand strategic business-oriented activities in the framework are more valuable or more important. I want to get up and work on strategy and all that kind of stuff. That execution stuff over on the right-hand side is equally valuable, right? You can have the best strategy in the world. If you can't execute, you're not going to be successful. Now, you can't execute without having a strategy first, because you don't know what you're supposed to be executing on. So we have to start with that strategic thing. And the reason I say that is because sometimes when you sit down with a group like this, there is that tendency for people to want to pluck those things from that upper left-hand side. I want to go be in strategy. Strategy's cool. Everybody likes strategy, right? And so even though we may not honestly be that good at it, even though we may not be that interested in it, sometimes there's a natural gravitation to that. One of the ways I used to use the framework was when I was managing a team. We would look at the framework for each of the kind of periodic reviews, and I guess this is something would probably be good as a part of that previous question about remote teams. But I would, as a part of the employee review, we'd look at the framework, and I'd say, okay, tell me 3 activities that you enjoy doing, that you really like to do. Tell me 3 things you don't like to do, and tell me 3 things you would like to learn more about. And that kind of helped me put together a plan for this product person. I tried to focus them on things they like to do, because guess what? We do better at the things we like to do. I tried to keep them away from the things that they didn't like to do. Now, we always, all of us have to do things we don't particularly like to do. So you're going to have to suck it up and do some of that stuff. But I'll try to spread that load. And then the 3 things I wanted to learn more about was really kind of a career development plan. Let's see if we can get you in training. Let's see if we can get you some specialized interaction. Let's give you some trial projects in those areas to make sure you get exposure to that kind of stuff. So the answer to the question about, there's 5 of you, what you may want to do is some kind of bidding or some kind of poker, right? What are the 3 things you want to do? What are the 3 things you want to do? 3 things you want to do. What are the things you don't want to do, don't want to do? And just kind of let's negotiate and have a kind of a poker game to see where we land. There may be some activities that are, end up uncovered that you've just got to have to assign among yourselves. But if there are only 5 of you and you're in a startup, you're going crazy and wearing multiple hats anyway. And so I just sit down and have that kind of discussion, have a Zoom session or whatever, And maybe you can kick it off with, what are the three you want? What are the three you like? What are the three you don't like? And use the framework to kind of guide how you're going to allocate those responsibilities, much as we would do with a gap analysis.
Steve, it occurred to me as you were talking about the perception that that top left strategic side is just more glamorous in a lot of ways. It occurred to me in our courses, we do emphasize that top left side. We say the most important box is market problems. Go there, start there. But it seems like the reason we emphasize that is because there are so many companies out there doing execution having not properly done that go to the market side yet. So it is possible to do that execution without proper strategy. It's just ill-advised, maybe.
Yeah, it's not possible to do it well. It's much harder to do it. And you're exactly right, Eddie. We emphasize that upper left-hand corner and especially market problems is the most important activity, not because of the glamour and not because of the relative value of that. It's that if you don't do that well, everything else is going to be hard to do. So it's more of a prioritization than it is a level of importance. You got to begin there. You got to begin in that left-hand corner.
Beautiful. There you go, Roberto. I hope that helps you a lot. A quick call out to our live in-person Zoom folks. So far, Gowrie is in the lead for that free lunch because she's the only one competing. So get another question in there if you're hungry. Get a question in there to us. In the meantime, we got plenty that were pre-submitted, so we can go on all day if Steve's got the energy to do it. I've got a question from Leah. Leah asks, I have taken over a new team of 7 from a previous product exec, and I'm having some difficulty getting them to feel motivated to do their best work. How can I inspire while still making it known we have a job to do? Well, Steve, how do you motivate a team, to ask a general question there? Also, how do you do it if you're remote as well, which likely these days they are?
Yeah, so we're deep in the HR stack. Eddie, I've done everything. I've done every job at a technology company except HR and finance. And I know enough about both of those to know I don't ever want to do either one of those roles, fill either one of those. So we're deep in the HR stack. But now, motivating, I think it was interesting, and I can't remember, I don't know exactly how it was phrased, Eddie, but something about getting difficulty, having them feel motivated to do their best work, right, or something along those lines. I think it can be a difficult or maybe sometimes an uncomfortable conversation, but we need to understand why they're not motivated, right? What is the root cause, right? Is it because you have too much to do, as somebody spoke to earlier? Is it because you haven't been able to have a cup of coffee or a whatever your beverage of choice might be with one of your colleagues in a year, right? You've got to have enough of a personal engagement with those team members to get to the bottom of why is the motivation lacking? Is it because they're not seeing the results of their efforts? Well, then now that's something I can go fix, right? Here's what we're doing in the market. Here's our leadership position. Look at the great things people are saying about our products, right? Now, if I understand that root cause, I can start to understand that. Are you having a lack of motivation? Are you feeling, like you're really not excited to be here and excited to do the work because you've been drudging through the same work for the last 14 months and nothing's changed? Okay, well, let's throw all this stuff up in the air, have everybody swap things around, and let's give somebody, new ideas, new tasks, new things to go work on. If you're finding it difficult because part of your family's out of work or something of that nature, right? Maybe that's it's a lot of the personal struggles that we may have in this situation, in the reality that we're in today. Let's understand that and see if we can see what we might be able to do to facilitate that, right? You haven't had a beverage of choice with your colleagues in a long time and you're missing that. Let's have a virtual happy hour. Let's get together and do those kinds of things. But it's hard to motivate someone unless you understand what it takes to motivate them, right? Are they driven by seeing the results of their work being successful in the market? Are they driven by financial compensation? Are they driven by, right, what motivates them? You've got to understand that, because otherwise, any kind of motivational things that you do could be less than well received. Right? If you're trying to motivate them in the wrong way, if you're trying to do things that they don't care about, right? That's okay. We're just more noise, right? So I
Steve,
think
do you
you
have
really
any examples? Do you have any examples of an attempted motivation that kind of went south?
yeah. I mean, a basic
It felt
example
it
is,
felt like there was a story there, is why I'm asking.
yeah. So once upon a time, there could have been a
Without
situation.
naming names.
In theory, here, there might have been a situation where the various product team members and engineering and BAs really were doing one of this, right? They just really didn't like each other. They didn't have respect for one another. And, it was painful. And as a result, we weren't getting things done. And it was, not a good situation. So let's get everybody together and have a beverage of choice. How do you think that's going to turn out? Not good. All right, everybody goes to their own little corner. I don't like those people anyway,
Oh,
making me get together with these people.
it was like a
And
middle school dance.
yeah, exactly. Well put. Well put. Right. So what do we do there? Well, you get the leadership of each of those and say, look, you guys aren't getting along, and I know you're not getting along, and I know we got to get along if we're going to be successful. So let's talk it out. Let's have a little family therapy here among us people that are having to that need to be successful in delivering this product family that we've got together. Let's have that conversation and understand what's going on. And so that's an example. If you're trying to get everybody together to recognize their efforts, but things aren't going well, it's not going to look, we've moved up to number 27 in the market. Yay! No, not going to work.
Good one. I know we in our office back in the before times when we were all together, the marketing team used to like to throw some celebrations when the sales team was having a big sale, and it was really fun until we started using fireworks in the office, and then there were a few people that got a little nervous because it sounded like gunshots. Maybe that didn't have the exact intended motivational factor, but we had a good
Sprinkler
time.
systems go off. Anytime the sprinklers go off, it's probably not a very motivating kind of thing.
No marketing. Any chance to set off the sprinklers, we'll take it. We've got time for maybe one or two more questions, and then we got to pick our free lunch. So I'm going to choose this one here from Sarah. Sarah says, how much should PMMs be expected to contribute to a product strategy? Are there any hard and fast rules or best practices?
Go break out the gap analysis. Go through the discussion. See what product manager or PMMs are assigned to those activities. Right, product strategy. Strategy is such a I don't know. It's not an overused term, but there's so many different definitions of strategy and what you mean by strategy. You've got your corporate strategy, your CEO, your executive team is setting a strategy, which is really all about growing the enterprise value in most organizations. How do we increase shareholder price? How do we get the next level of funding to come at a higher valuation than the current level or the last level? Those kinds of things. That level of strategy, that's going to be managed by the executive team, the CEO, maybe the board of directors, right? Those kinds of things. The next level of strategy down, we've got to have that product strategy, right? So maybe what markets are we going to pursue, evaluating new opportunities, defining market segments, identifying adjacent market segments, right? All that kind of stuff. That's really pretty strategic work, which is, let's take this high level growing enterprise value, let's move it down to the product level. And the challenge really comes in, and why I can't give you a best practice answer is because some people have a role they call product strategy that's responsible for that kind of stuff. Industry strategy, market strategy. Some companies have product management responsible for that. Some have product marketing management for that. So it really comes down to how you divide those responsibilities based on the roles and titles you have, how you separate those activities. But again, the gap analysis, let's have that discussion. That upper left-hand corner, by the way, we do facilitated gap analysis or action planning workshop, and we'll spend a half day or a day with an organization and walk through that process with them and kind of facilitate the discussion. And it's usually that upper left-hand corner in the framework, all the strategy stuff. Those are the things that usually have the largest gaps. Those are the things that don't have clear owners. We don't execute very well. That upper left-hand corner is the kind of stuff that is usually undone. So usually it's a very valuable discussion because now we can understand who owns those activities.
There you go. That was a question from Sarah. Hope that helps you, Sarah. Steve, good question from Lanka in the chat over there. I see. Can you please tell us what Marcom is responsible for? I feel in our company, Marcom is crossing the swim lanes all over the place. Is there one best way? Are there multiple ways? What part of the framework would Marcom be focusing in, you think?
Yeah, so Lanka, thank you very much for submitting a question that sets me up and when I have two Marcom people on the call with me from inside Pragmatic. Thanks a lot. I got to be careful with this answer, right? Marcom, at the broadest strokes, is responsible for things like brand. They're responsible for things oftentimes like awareness in the market. And Eddie and Callie, you guys feel free to chime in here too as well. They're responsible for taking the messages that have been developed to the market. What are the channels we're going to use to share that information? They're responsible for creative. They're sometimes responsible for investor relations. Sometimes they're responsible for analyst relations, right? All those kinds of things. So there are some overlaps depending on the size of the company and depending on whether you even have those tasks covered. So generally, I would say Marcom is the face to the market and responsible for the activities going on in the market. Sometimes the gray area, and it's gray only because it's something that has to be done, and sometimes Marcom does it, and sometimes product does it. Developing the messages themselves and the messaging and the campaigns. Sometimes in some companies that falls to product marketing management. Sometimes it falls to Marcom. So the activities by design on the framework are focused on what we would call the product team, the product management, product marketing, strategic product management, technical product management, all those kinds of things. And sometimes Marcom is a part of the gap analysis that we've been talking about, picks up some of those responsibilities. So I would suggest start at the framework, again, do that gap analysis, and let's have one clear owner and see what's crossing over. I don't know, Eric or Lanka, do you have specific examples of where you think marketing gets out of their swim lane? And Eddie and Callie, have you guys disagreed with anything that I said?
You know, while they're thinking of a question there, I was just going to ask, is it possible that you might have personnel who are filling roles both in Marcom and in product or?
Yeah, you absolutely can. Just like you'd have, people wearing multiple hats in lots of different places. You absolutely can, yeah.
Yeah, that was a little inside joke between me and Steve because I was just explaining before the call that that's exactly what I do. It's possible to sit in multiple departments in a way, depending on the structure of your company, depending on the needs as well. And Eric, did you have any other specific examples that you wanted to bring up for Steve there on that topic?
I think I just chimed in just to say that I think it's more along the lines of communication. There's communication silos in one part of our company, and it's just a matter of breaking down those walls and making sure that whatever activities are happening in our Marcom area, that that we're sharing that information across and we're supporting each other. And so probably not in Lanka's case, but in my case, it's more of just a problem I need to solve with opening up those lines of communication more. So thanks for that.
So just to reiterate, let me give you an example. So the product manager is in channel specific for the outward, and there's a technical product manager who is giving us the market requirements, and there's a another product manager who is, involved with sales and helping them. So one person is looking outwards and also helping to train people on our technology. And Marcom always wants to say that, oh, I can do that. I mean, it's not Marcom job, right? Very clearly it is not. That is
Yeah, so I, at the risk of stepping on some toes, I would argue that probably the skill set that's necessary to successfully market and perform Marcom functions is probably not the same skill set that's necessary to train people on your technology. Those to me are kind of different skill sets. I can see from a Marcom perspective where they could say, okay, training is an outbound communication with the market kind of thing, but
But they're also not they don't have the domain knowledge to do that. So she's pointing to all this documentation and technical things that are in the website. That is not training per se, right?
Yeah, and I don't know, it depends on, in that situation, we'd say, okay, here's the metric that we're going to use to measure whether or not the training is successful. Are they able to do this? Are they able to do that? Are we cutting down on calls to the help desk for those people who've been trained, all that kind of, you can put metrics around that and then ask Marcom if they're willing to sign up for those metrics and what is necessary to deliver on those. And that's kind of a way to get out of the push-pull and say, okay, you want it, here's what you're signing up for. Because it's, as you say, it's way more than just pointing to documents on the website. It's, getting into the application of how on a detailed basis that people are going to use your product. That's a different knowledge set, a different skill set.
Yeah, good comment from Eric just now. Perhaps you've got the opportunity there for some crucial conversations that need to be had, which, seems like that division of labor, those labors are usually divided for a reason because they're full-time jobs. Both of them are full-time jobs. So good chance for discussion. Yeah, and different skill sets too. Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for the questions and comments you've given us. We've had good comments from everybody live in the chat here. And that means, Steve, it is time, completely at your discretion. You don't even have to justify your choice. You get to pick who in our live studio audience today is going to get a free lunch from Pragmatic Institute. Who's it going to be?
And it's got to be based on question, right?
It's totally based on Steve.
Well, I know, but the questions that we were asked. I
Sure.
think the best question was Gary's question about building custom solutions, short-term versus long-term, and those trade-offs. I think that's a really insightful question, and it's a very real question that we face constantly in product teams. So I think I'm going to have to go with that one. Brilliant.
Gary, thank you so much for the question. And I believe we've got your email already. So look for that coupon for the free lunch. It's coming to you as quick as we can get it out there. And thank you, all of you, for being with us and for contributing today. What a blast. Let me just give a shout out to the next in our product chat series. That happens Tuesday, April 13th, 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to welcome companies Closed, Center Code, and Product Led. And that's just going to be a star-studded discussion surrounding how product professionals can become masters of their competitive landscape. Look for that on the events tab of the Pragmatic Institute website if you haven't checked that out in a while. And of course, if you just can't stand being without us for very long, join us here again every Friday, same bat time, 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time, for the Ask Me Anything series with a Pragmatic Institute instructor, such as the invaluable Steve Gaylor. Steve, thanks. We had a blast today.
Yeah, it was good fun. Good to be able to sit in the hot seat for 45 minutes or so here. So thank you, everyone.
You wear it well.
And we'll see you next time around.
Brilliant. Happy Friday, everybody. Stay safe and healthy. We will see you again next time.